While the American media was busy covering celebrity scandals and political fights, China quietly finished one of the most strategically dangerous projects of the 21st century. A 400-kilometer railway connecting mainland China directly to the heart of Iran. No oceans, no US Navy patrols, no Strait of Hormuz, just a steel artery cutting through 5 countries, completely bypassing American power. The first train arrived at Tehran on May 25, 2025, and what it carried inside should make every American policymaker lose sleep. This isn't just a railway. This is the silent collapse of American influence in 2 regions at once. Let's start with the facts most Americans have never heard. On May 25, 2025, a freight train pulled into Tehran's Opran dry port. It had departed from Xi'an, China, 14 days earlier. Inside the containers were Chinese solar panels, but the cargo wasn't the point. The point was the route. For the first time in history, a direct freight train completed the entire journey from central China to the capital of Iran, traveling over 10,399 kilometers across 4 countries. The route runs from Xi'an through China's Xinjiang region, exits at the Alatau Pass into Kazakhstan, cuts through Turkmenistan, and finally enters Iran. 3 days later, on May 28, 2025, Chinese officials officially declared the China-Iran Railway complete and operational. The Belt and Road Initiative, announced by Xi Jinping back in 2013, had finally connected its 2 most important pieces, the Chinese industrial heartland and the Iranian energy giant, and the United States couldn't do anything to stop it. To understand why this is so significant, you have to look at a map. China sits in the east, Iran sits in the west. Between them lies thousands of kilometers of mountains, deserts, and Soviet-era infrastructure that everyone thought was impossible to modernize. The railway starts in Yiwu and Xi'an, 2 of China's largest industrial cities. It then enters Kazakhstan through the Alatau Pass, one of the most important rail border crossings in Central Asia. From there, it crosses Kazakhstan's vast steppes for over 20,500 kilometers. Then it enters Turkmenistan, a former Soviet republic that has remained closed off from the West for decades. And finally, it reaches Iran. Along the way, the train must change gauges twice because Russian and Chinese rail systems use different track widths. The journey takes 14 days. Compare that to ocean shipping. A container from Shanghai to Iran's Bandar Abbas port takes 30 to 40 days by sea. The new railway cuts that travel time by more than half, and unlike the sea route, every single mile of this railway is on land that the United States Navy cannot reach. Now here's where it gets serious. For over 70 years, the United States has held one card over global trade that no one could match: the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway between Iran and Oman is the most important shipping choke point on the planet. Roughly 20% of all the world's oil passes through it every single day. The US Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, has been parked there since 1995, specifically to keep that choke point open and under American influence. Every supertanker that leaves the Persian Gulf, every barrel of oil that reaches Asia, every container of goods moving between east and west, almost all of it passes within range of American warships. This single piece of geography is why the dollar dominates oil trade. It's why American sanctions actually hurt countries. And it's why Washington has had unmatched leverage in the Middle East for decades. But now, with the China-Iran Railway operational, that leverage is starting to crack. Beijing has built itself an emergency exit, a way to keep trading with Iran even if the entire Persian Gulf shuts down tomorrow. And the implications are massive. Let me show you the difference this railway makes in raw numbers. The traditional ocean route from China to Iran goes from Shanghai, through the South China Sea, past the contested Spratly Islands, through the Malacca Strait, another American-influenced choke point, across the Indian Ocean around India, into the Arabian Sea, and finally into the Strait of Hormuz to reach Iran's ports. Total distance, roughly 11,000 kilometers. Total time, 30 to 40 days. Total choke points, at least 4, all monitored by American naval howpower. Now the new railway. Total distance, 10,399 kilometers. Total time, 14 days. Total choke points under American control, 0. The railway also avoids piracy zones near Somalia. It avoids tensions in the South China Sea. It avoids potential blockades in the Malacca Strait. It avoids any naval interception altogether. For container freight, the cost difference is enormous. A 40-foot container that used to take 6 weeks now takes 2. For perishable goods, electronics, and time-sensitive manufacturing supplies, this is a complete game changer. And in 2026, after the United States tightened maritime restrictions in the Persian Gulf, the railway's frequency exploded from 1 train per week to 1 train every 3 to 4 days. The American naval pressure didn't stop trade, it just rerouted it. How did China pull this off without the world paying attention? The answer is patience and strategy. Most Americans assume Chinese mega projects happen overnight. They don't. The China-Iran Railway is the result of nearly 2 decades of careful planning. It began with the original Kazakhstan-Turkmenistan-Iran rail link, which opened in 2014. Then in 2016, China sent its very first test freight train from Yiwu all the way to Tehran. That train was more of a symbol than a real trade route. It carried just 32 containers, but it proved the concept worked. Then progress stalled. Western sanctions on Iran intensified. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted Central Asia. American pressure on Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan limited cooperation, but Beijing never gave up. In April 2024, railway officials from China, Iran, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan met secretly in Beijing. They signed a quiet cooperation agreement that the Western press barely covered. A year later, the entire 399-kilometer corridor was complete. While American politicians were debating wall funding and TikTok bans, Chinese engineers were quietly welding the final tracks that would link the world's largest manufacturing economy to one of its largest oil suppliers. No press conferences, no grand announcements, just steel, sleepers, and strategy. Here's why every American national security expert is now worried. The United States has spent decades using one of its most powerful tools to control bad actors: economic sanctions. Sanctions work because they cut a country off from the global financial system. Iran has been under various US sanctions since 1979. North Korea is under sanctions. Russia is under sanctions. Venezuela is under sanctions. The reason these sanctions usually work is because most international trade flows through systems controlled by the West. Dollar payments, SWIFT banking, maritime insurance from London, container shipping companies based in Europe. The US can pressure any of these systems to refuse business with sanctioned countries, but railways change everything. A train from Xi'an to Tehran doesn't need American dollars. It doesn't need SWIFT. It doesn't need Western maritime insurance because there's no ship and no ocean. It moves on Chinese rolling stock, paid for in Chinese yuan, insured by Chinese companies, on tracks controlled by Chinese partners. The entire transaction can happen completely outside the Western financial system. And that means every sanction the US has placed on Iran becomes weaker the moment that train crosses the border. Let's talk about oil, because this is where the railway becomes truly dangerous to American interests. China imports roughly 1.38 million barrels of crude oil from Iran every single day. That accounts for more than 13% of China's total ocean-based oil imports, and over 80% of all Iranian oil exports flow directly to China. This relationship has been a thorn in Washington's side for years. The US has tried to choke off Iranian oil exports through sanctions, secondary sanctions, and naval pressure in the Persian Gulf. But that strategy depended on one assumption, that if the United States blocked the Strait of Hormuz or sanctioned Iranian oil shipments, China would have to comply or find alternative suppliers. The railway destroys that assumption. While most oil still moves by sea, the railway provides a strategic backup channel. It allows China and Iran to maintain trade in non-oil goods even if maritime routes are blocked. That means Iranian exports of petrochemicals, refined products, and mineral resources can continue. It means Chinese manufactured goods, technology, and machinery can flow into Iran even during a blockade. And most importantly, it sends a signal to the entire world. American sanctions are no longer absolute. There are workarounds, and the workarounds are getting bigger every year. But here's the part the mainstream media almost never explains. The China-Iran railway is not the final destination. It's just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The Belt and Road Initiative is the most ambitious infrastructure project in human history. China has committed over $1 trillion to building roads, ports, railways, pipelines, and power plants across more than 140 countries. The Iran Railway is the southern corridor of this vast network. From Iran, the tracks are being extended westward into Turkey, and from Turkey, they will eventually connect directly into Europe. Imagine that. A freight train leaves a factory in Wuhan, China, and arrives at a warehouse in Berlin, Germany, all on Chinese-built or Chinese-financed railways with no Western shipping company involved at any point. That is the future Beijing is building. In May 2025, railway officials from China, Iran, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Turkey met in Tehran. They are coordinating a transcontinental rail network that will eventually move goods from the Pacific Ocean all the way to the Atlantic, entirely overland. The European Union, China's second-largest trading partner, did $850 billion in trade with China in 2025. Right now, almost all of that trade goes by ship. Imagine what happens when half of it moves to rail. American naval power becomes geographically irrelevant, the dollar's grip weakens, and the global trade map gets redrawn from scratch. So why exactly is the United States so terrified of this development? 3 reasons. First, strategic encirclement. The railway connects China and Iran, but it also strengthens Russia's position in Central Asia and gives Turkey new leverage as a transit hub. This is exactly the kind of multipolar coalition that Washington has tried to prevent for the last 30 years. Second, the loss of leverage. American foreign policy has relied on naval dominance and financial sanctions to control adversaries. Both of those tools become weaker every time a new overland trade route opens. The Pentagon can dominate the Pacific Ocean. It cannot dominate Kazakhstan's steppes. Third, the demonstration effect. If Iran can survive American sanctions by trading overland with China, then other countries will start asking the same question. Why submit to Western pressure if you can simply route trade through Chinese-backed corridors instead? Already, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and several African nations are watching closely. The U.S. think tank Stimson Center published a detailed report in August 2025, acknowledging that the China-Iran rail link provides an alternative route for Tehran's oil exports and overall trade with China that lies completely outside American influence. When a respected American policy institute admits that publicly, you know the situation is serious. And behind closed doors in Washington, defense planners are scrambling to figure out a response. So far, they haven't found one. Where does this go from here? The answer should worry every American watching this video. Iran's Ministry of Roads announced in 2025 that it plans to build 9 new transit railway corridors with a total length of 17,000 kilometers. The estimated cost is over $10 billion. China has already agreed to electrify a 1,000-kilometer section from Sarax to Razi on the Turkish border. This electrification will triple the freight capacity to 15 million tons annually. The Sarax railway terminal on the Turkmenistan-Iran border was more than 50% complete by August 2025. And new gauge-matching tracks are being laid between Iran and Turkmenistan to accelerate freight movement. By 2030, transportation experts estimate the China-Iran-Turkey-Europe corridor will be capable of moving over 50 million tons of freight per year. That's enough to seriously challenge maritime shipping for high-value containers. Meanwhile, additional corridors are being planned. The China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway is finally moving forward after years of delays. The five nations railway corridor connecting Iran, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and China is in advanced feasibility study. Every new line further weakens American influence over global trade flows. Every new line strengthens the alternative system that Beijing is quietly building. And the American response so far has been almost nothing. No counter-strategy, no infrastructure investment, no coherent plan. Just slow, painful watching as the maps change against U.S. interests. The 10,400-kilometer railway from China to Iran is not just a railway. It is a declaration that the era of American naval supremacy controlling global trade is ending. It is a working example that countries can trade outside the Western system. And it is the foundation of a Chinese-led economic order that may dominate the rest of this century. If this video opened your eyes to the silent shifts the mainstream media refuses to cover, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications.